Well, here we go again. Ready or not, it's holiday season once more. As I record this, we're about to celebrate Thanksgiving. And when you listen to it, when it's released, Thanksgiving will have come and gone, but Christmas is yet to arrive. The words Thanksgiving, Christmas, holidays, all certainly conjure up many different images and feelings for each of us. For some of us, the holidays are a time of celebration and friends, family, and fun. There's joy, laughter, memory making. And even if this is true for most of us, most of the time, when you're facing a divorce, new parenting arrangements, perhaps a custody battle or loss of extended family, and other grievances as part of a major life transition like divorce, having hope and joy and making merry during the holidays is hard. And today I want to share just a little bit of my holiday divorce story and some encouragement for you to get through this season well. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Starting Over Stronger show, where you'll find health and hope for your divorce survival and recovery. Divorce well, live well.
Even in the best of times, the holidays can be hectic. When you're celebrating the holidays for the first time on your own, or maybe not yet even on your own, but in a strained home, that hectic can quickly become overwhelm, melancholy, and just downright depressing. When I filed for divorce years ago, it was at the beginning of November, and I knew I was going to have a rough holiday season. I had no idea how rough. I just knew I couldn't stay stuck in the miserable place I had been for years, not for one single holiday more. The time for change was now. It's easy to ask ourselves, when is the right time to divorce? But the answer to that question is vague. And I will have to say it's just whenever you decide it's time. And certainly if you're served with papers, it really doesn't matter whether or not you think it's the right time. It's happening. So you just have to accept it. And for me, after so many times of standing on the edge of that cliff and then turning back, I just couldn't do it anymore, regardless of what day it was on the calendar. And I felt an immense sense of relief when I finally made the decision. I started interviewing attorneys and selected one and filed. I also had the added pressure of my son's birthday being right around that same time at the beginning of November. So when I was visiting with attorneys at the end of October and papers were drawn up and ready to be filed, I had to put it on hold because I just couldn't do it on that day. So we held them for a few days and they ended up being filed on November 3rd. And I knew Thanksgiving was coming. And in our family tradition, it was a day of fun and relaxation at my ex's side of the family. And I suddenly realized that my world was forever changing. Not being close to my own family and his mom and dad being more like my own, the divorce that I was so relieved to be getting, to be freeing myself from all the pain and toxicity in the marriage, suddenly felt like less of a relief and more of a loss for me. And it was a loss that I was willing to accept, but it was a loss just the same. And that year, I was actually invited to go to that Thanksgiving gathering at my in-laws. And I appreciated the invitation, but I knew that everyone there knew that I had filed for divorce, and that would just be awkward. So I chose not to. And I ended up having Thanksgiving with the family friends who let me rent their finished basement apartment for a couple of months while I waited for the townhouse that I was going to be renting to be ready. And, I'd always wanted to serve a meal to those in need on the Thanksgiving holiday to teach our kids about generosity, but my spouse didn't. So we didn't. We spent the entire day at his parents' house eating and watching football. And of course, I enjoyed it. I just thought it would be nice to do something different for part of the day, and it just never happened. So when this day came around, I had that option. And because I wasn't going to be going to the family gathering, I did do what I'd always wanted to do. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that here in a moment. But I wanted my kids to spend that day the way they always had, even though it would be without me. And so they went to the family gathering. And then I think they came over to my humble little basement apartment that evening for a little while, and we made the best of it. I knew that they would get to experience the Thanksgiving they always knew and loved, and I would still get to spend some time with them. Certainly, it was not the same. It was awkward and probably a little bit sad and uncomfortable for everyone, but we pushed through. And one thing that we did that I want to mention is that, or that I did, is to just kind of shift the focus to others. Like I said, I'd always wanted to serve a meal to those in need, whatever that looked like. And so I ended up actually serving a Thanksgiving meal to the on-duty police, fire, ambulance workers in the area of the church that I was attending at the time. And, certainly I could have been sitting at home being sad that I was not with my kids at our traditional family holiday celebration. But, like I said, everyone there knew I had filed for divorce, and I think it just would have been awkward. And I didn't want to spend that day with my soon-to-be ex. So it was a necessary severing. I did certainly invite the kids to come help serve the meal. They chose to go to their family thing and stay there for the full day. And that was certainly fine. And they just, like I said, they came over later that evening and we hung out. So it looked different, but it was okay because I got to make the best of it. And I'm happy for that. And then by the time Christmas came that year, I had settled into my new little space with my family friends in their basement. I loved all the peace and quiet there. I was busy trying to find a job, and my kids were, their own kinds of busy in high school and starting to work. And I saw them as often as I could, but I admittedly spent a lot of time alone. I cried a lot. I was not really feeling sorry for myself so much, although maybe a little, but mostly it was just a cleansing kind of cry. All the tears that I never got to cry when I had to be strong and keep trying to make things work for the last 10 years. It was probably a lot of ugly crying and a whole boxes of tissue crying. It was purging decades of pain, and I needed it. It felt miserable, but it felt incredible all at the same time. And the thing I want you to know about this deep guttural cleansing pain is that it's temporary. I don't want to minimize the fact that it feels terrible or be insensitive at all, because I know that pain is very real. I was experiencing, and frankly, I still do sometimes still feel extreme physical and emotional pain from the fallout of my divorce. But what I know now that I don't think that I grasped then, that I want you to know, is that this came to pass, not to stay. This pain had a purpose, and the pain that you're feeling right now as we go into the holidays is purposeful. There's a purpose for it. You may feel like you're under attack. You may feel like a victim in it all, and like nothing will ever be okay. But I can make you a promise here. It is going to be okay. And if you find yourself in this place now during the holiday season and you're facing solitude that you thought you wanted, but now you wonder how you will survive, I want to offer a few ideas that you can maybe implement to find some hope. And the first of which is to not isolate yourself all the time. Like I said, I spent a lot of time in that basement apartment alone. I cried all the tears I needed to cry. But then probably every day, or certainly most days, I dried my eyes, I threw on some clothes and some makeup, and I got out of there. I would go upstairs and spend time with the lovely couple that welcomed me into their home. I would go for job interviews. I would go to coffee with friends. I would go for walks. I would sometimes just go sit outdoors on the back patio there and butted up against a wooded area. And it was very peaceful. And I would just breathe the fresh air and watch the birds and squirrels. And another avenue to hope is to help and comfort others. Like I mentioned before, focusing on others is a sure way to stop feeling the sadness of loss during a holiday divorce. You can serve at a soup kitchen. You can take your kids with you to do that. You can adopt an angel tree family and go shopping for a family in need to bless them, even with some small gifts. You can bake. That's oftentimes not all that expensive. And you can share those baked goods with people and bring smiles to faces, which in turn brings a smile to yours. And you can get involved with church efforts and community efforts to feed the homeless, or like I did that Thanksgiving, to serve a meal with a church to on-duty heroes. And the reason that it's so important is because, the old saying is it's more blessed to give than to receive. And I think there's so much truth in that, because when we give, it just feels good in a way that nothing else feels. And when you're feeling really down, you're probably, if you don't go do something for someone else, you're going to be sitting at home being sad that things aren't the way they've always been. So spend some time thinking about how you can reach out and help others. And in another way of reaching out, you can develop new friendships and connect with old friends that are good for you during this season. Spend time with people who will keep your mind from drifting back to the sadness that you might be feeling about this season of loss and change.
Are you struggling to decide whether divorce is the right decision for you, or just tired of feeling like you're broken and everything is all your fault? The decision of how and whether to leave a toxic relationship can take years without good support from people who understand. The Starting Over Stronger Toxic Relationship Recovery Support Group is designed with you in mind. Led by me, certified divorce and life transition coach Annie Allen, and with a small group of women in your shoes. You're going to find understanding here. We're going to talk about the patterns of these relationships and what you can do about them. There are currently 2 weekly groups running, one on Monday evenings at 6 p.m. Central and the other on your Wednesday lunch hour at noon Central. So whether you need an evening or a daytime group to meet your needs for privacy during this call, please consider joining us. If you're interested in learning more, just send an email with your interest from your secure email address that only you have access to Annie at startingoverstronger.com. And if you're in a controlling or abusive relationship, wondering how you could ever be a part of a support group like this without putting yourself at risk or exposing your desire to leave, please indicate that in your email and we can discuss solutions. You can make this work. And I know you feel alone, but you're not. Reach out and find the help you need.
And so as I was, transitioning through Thanksgiving toward Christmas, knowing Christmas was coming, I knew things weren't going to feel natural or normal with the kids. I didn't know what we would be doing. And I was just starting to plan how to make it as happy of an occasion as possible. And I actually thought that it would be best to just figure out a way that there would be a clear delineation about who was going to be where and what. And so I made arrangements with my soon-to-be ex at the time to share Christmas in a way that worked for us. And for us, that was Christmas Eve with me and Christmas with him. Again, as I said, his parents were the family that my kids were closest to, and that I was, in fact, as well. And so they had traditions, and I didn't want to be creating an immediate need for change in that, that there was no reason not to allow that to be what it was. So I did. And I just took Christmas Eve and decided how to make it fun and just memorable. So I think the caution here, or the tip here, is to just let yourself be happy. I mean, it's really easy to get mad about a lot of things when all these changes are happening, and mad or sad. And the fact is, there's a lot of negative emotion that surrounds divorce. And frankly, it can feel strange to feel anything other than that negative emotion. during this time, or to think it's not appropriate for you to be happy or even possible for you to be happy. But if happiness comes, just let it flow. You deserve to be happy and enjoy the holidays as much as anyone else does. And sometimes that takes some intentionality. You may have to be the one to reach out to family and friends. They may or may not know the status of your situation. And if they do, they may not know how to act. People can get stupid when a divorce is filed. It's really kind of ridiculous. I have heard some stories, and people may shut down and not talk to either you or your spouse. They may choose sides. They may get judgy. They may think they know how things should be handled in your life. And maybe they mean well, or maybe they don't. But they often do a lot of harm regardless. So you'll have to be wise about who you let in and how far you let them in. And if you get the idea that they're taking sides and that they're not on your side, it would be wise to create some distance. And that distance may or may not be forever, but you have to be careful with your emotional energy right now. You do not owe anyone an explanation for your decisions. You do not need to justify your decisions to anyone. If anyone puts you in a place that makes you feel uncomfortable with their lines of questioning or their advice or judgment, just be firm but kind in your resolve and let them know their input is not needed or appreciated, not what you need, and then assert what you need. A good person will understand and comply, or maybe never put you in that space to begin with. But even the good friends who wouldn't ever do that still may not reach out to you. They should, certainly, but they might not. One, they might not know they need to. But two, they might feel like they don't know what to say or how to act, or they might think you want space. So you just have to let them know what you need. Reach out and get the support and care that you need, even if you have to ask for it. Another suggestion for finding hope during the holidays and during divorce is to say no to guilt. Yes, your kids' holidays are going to be different. But no, that doesn't mean you're bad or at fault. Different isn't always bad or wrong. It's just different. It can feel bad at first because change is hard, but usually it only feels bad if we're living in guilt or shame about it. But change is hard regardless because our brains love the familiar. And that's true even when the familiar is pain. So remember the reason that you're divorcing, whether that was a toxic marriage, infidelity, or just living like roommates with someone when you deserve to be treasured as a partner and a lover. None of those things are good. Divorced, with a D on the end, is an improvement on any of those situations. Divorce without the D, the process, is the hard part. Work with your ex to cooperate and keep as much normalcy as possible and continue all the traditions that you can, but also simplify where you can and think about what new traditions you might like to create. With my kids for Christmas, because like I said, I'd agreed to Christmas Eve with them, allowing them to spend Christmas with my now ex and his family. And I decided what I wanted to do with Christmas Eve. And even though it felt like a sacrifice, and it was, I just decided to make the best of it. So we created, well, really I created this idea and ran with it. For one, we had a meal. It was a simple one. And then we just did something new and fun. And we had, as a family, always watched this show on TV, like a reality TV show, I think it was, called The Great Christmas Light Fight, I think was the name of it, where people have mega light displays and this crew travels around and goes through them and learns about what all they've gone through to set them up, and they win prizes and stuff. So I decided to create our own little Great Christmas Light Fight game. And so I made these little printouts with like scorecards, and we jumped in the car And we drove around and looked at Christmas lights in the surrounding neighborhoods and ranked them by originality and number of lights and whether they were classic or fun, and all of these different categories. And then we decided very randomly and subjectively who was the winner of our contest. And I had done some baking, as I always did during the holidays, and put together a plate full of treats and wrapped it up really pretty with cellophane and a bow. And the three of us, my son and daughter and I went up to the door of the house that we decided was the winner, and we rang the doorbell. They answered and we yelled, "Merry Christmas" and "Congratulations." And I'm sure they thought we were crazy. And so we went on to explain our little game and gave them their prize and wished them a Merry Christmas. And off we were. It was unique. It was fun. And to be honest with you, that was the only year we ever did it. But if my kids remember nothing else but bad vibes for the whole holiday season of 2017, they will remember the Great Christmas Light Fight, because it was fun and different. And I just decided that I needed to do something like that. I wanted to do something like that. And so think about what you might want to do that's new and fun and different, and whether or not you want that to involve the soon-to-be ex, and whether or not it looks anything like previous Christmases. It doesn't matter. You get to create whatever it is that you want to create for you and your kids this year. And it doesn't have to be something that's going to be a new tradition that you're going to do forever now. It can just be, this is the year that we're going to do this thing because we need something good in our lives, right? That's kind of what the Great Christmas Light Fight was for us. And another very important way for you to find hope during this difficult season is to think about the things that you need to pay attention to contribute to your good health. Christmas is right in the middle of the cold and flu season, and I didn't probably do the best job at this point in my life of eating right, exercising, and self-care. And so guess what that meant for me? I got to spend my first Christmas alone, taking a solo trip to the ER with unbearable pain in my head. The only way I know to describe this pain will probably sound like torture, and it pretty much was. It felt like a pulsing electrical shock to the back of my head that would just like spread throughout my head. It only lasted for seconds with each pulse, but I never knew when a pulse was coming, and it was random and intense, and sometimes only a minute or two apart, and sometimes a little longer. I'm glad I didn't know what it was yet, because if I'd gone to Dr. Google, I would have surely thought I had a brain tumor. But it did turn out to be diagnosed as an occipital neuralgia, which is irritation and inflammation of the optical nerve area in the back of your head. I was written a prescription, which I took to the pharmacy and waited on. And then I went back to my solo basement apartment and rested. I think I slept quite a bit of that day. And that was my first Christmas as a nearly single woman. And what caused that occipital neuralgia? I don't really know for sure. I don't think they knew for sure. I've had it a few times since then, and it seems to be brought on by extreme stress, but certainly eating well, being active, resting, and taking good care of myself would all have lowered my stress during a time when the circumstances of my life were unavoidably raising my stress level. So this is my cautionary tale to you. Don't end up in the ER alone on Christmas Day. Take care of yourself. Yes, eat the cookie. You need some indulgences just for the sake of pleasure alone, but also take the walk. Eat the salad, take the stairs, read a book, sit at the park, call a friend. And if you can spare the cash, go get a massage. There's these great little reflexology places all over town here in Kansas City that it's like 30 or 40 bucks for an hour massage. And it's great. It's a good massage. So this is a stressful time, and the best way for you to feel more hopeful about the future when your life won't be this stressful is to take care of yourself now and be proactive and intentional about creating whatever it is that you want to create in your life. And along with that, be realistic. This is not going to be your most picturesque holiday season. There's not going to be a family picture on the front of the Christmas card that you're going to sign and send to 100 of your favorite and closest friends and family. And that's okay. You cannot be all things to all people. And frankly, no one should be expecting that of you at this point anyway. Probably you have more expectations of yourself than anyone else has of you. You're in the messy middle of a major life transition, and one, I might add, that is going to have a happy ending. Yes, for most of us, separation and divorce brings increased responsibilities, confusion, decreased financial means, and more free time than we may want or know what to do with. So let's show ourselves some grace. I know for a fact, because I've journeyed this journey before, that you will find it easier to be realistic with the expectations you have of yourself, your family, and the holidays this year when you decide to let go of a whole bunch of guilt and fear and expectations. And last but not least, let's talk about leaning into your faith a little more. Would that feel good? Whatever your beliefs are, you might just find that the solace your heart and mind is seeking when you're not feeling so ho, ho, ho this time of year is spiritual. Christmas, for those of the Christian faith, was never about all the gifts and traditions anyway. And whether or not you are a Christian, the holidays are a solemn and reflective time that we might find much peace in deciding what feels good for us to lean into. Spend some time remembering what matters to you spiritually. What do you believe? How do you want to think about God and the world and your purpose here in it? And see if this, along with this other suggestions that have been made here today, does it make you feel a little bit more of the holiday spirit? I wish you many high hopes for a beautiful holiday season, no matter how different it might look for you this year. And one final tip, how about giving yourself a gift? This is the first holiday season, perhaps, that you are not going to be receiving a gift from your ex, and you probably won't be buying them a gift either. And that's okay. That's normal. But since your gift giving list has decreased by at least one, how about putting yourself on that list? You'll be able to buy yourself something that you'll truly enjoy this year. I had a friend once that got a salad spinner from her husband for Christmas. And I bet you can do better than that for yourself. You may also want to make sure it's not something that you'll regret purchasing when you get the credit card bill in January. So, whatever it is, treat yourself. You deserve it. You're going through a really hard time. So whatever that looks like for you, give yourself a gift this Christmas and let all of these things that we've talked about today allow you to enjoy it just a little bit. I hope that what I've shared here today helps you to have high hopes this holiday season. I wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I'll see you again in 2022.